Yeah, no, that's no worries.
Thanks all for being here, and I just want to thank you, I guess, collectively for your input to this committee to date. And I suspect when the final report's written, we'll realise that the information and expertise you provided us with is all through the report. Just want to underline the value that you've provided to inquiries like this now and in the past. I think you fleshed out quite effectively the role that you play. I'm interested to know what happens from here. I think, maybe we're now in day 2 of good government, day three, how time flies, and more open, consultative, listening government. So I'm actually going to express some hope that we can have this absurd decision reversed. If it's not, just tell us what happens between now and the end of the financial year for your 3 organisations. What does that actually look like?
Well, for National Shelter, we still have a project to complete, and we're in negotiation with the department about slightly revising that project plan. It won't now be able to be done to the same level as we would have done it, and that project is actually looking at rent setting policy. We will still complete the project because we're contracted to do that, but we won't probably be able to do it as thoroughly as we would have liked to. Beyond June 30, we face a future with no money. And the organisation is considering a strategy to see how we might be able to cobble together some alternative sources of funding, but I could not say with any confidence that we will be able to secure any funding, and the most likely scenario is that Shelter will not have any staff beyond June 30 next year, and at 58, as I now am, that's a pretty scary prospect individually.
For the Community Housing Federation, we've been in the process of moving from a federated body to a single industry body that would be membership driven. This is a process that we have apprised all of the ministers. We've been doing this for the last several years, and also the department. We were on track to move, we have been on track to move into that with a change in our constitution starting the beginning of July. However, that was predicated on the idea that there would be funding for a national office to continue all of the policy work we do. Without the funding, we are in the process of closing the Canberra office. I would say about half of my time is spent doing that. The other half is fulfilling our requirements under our existing contract. That puts 3 staff people out of work by the end of June. I do believe that our organization will continue, but in a very limited capacity, and I'm really unclear about how we will continue to do any of the types of industry body activities that have to do with the policy development and working with government. It'll be mostly focused on membership services, which is not really what the purpose of us combining our resources was.
Yeah. Mr.
Well, I suppose I'd like to say that at the moment, like the other 2 organisations, we're working on how to look at our own future instead of working on what we really should be doing, which is building sector capacity and giving good information to the community and to government. So it's all this whole process has taken so much time and energy away from what we really should be doing. It's such a waste. So at the moment, we're looking at a very uncertain future. We do have a small amount of resources, so I'm doing a lot of time doing financial models, trying to figure out how to best eke out the little bit of resources we have to stay afloat as long as possible, looking at where we'd start shedding staff. We only have a staff of 4, so where do we start putting people off, etc., to see how long we actually can stay afloat to do the job that we think needs to be done, because there is actually nobody else to do it. I
think when you were going through before what your annual funding is, it came cumulatively to less than $1 million a year.
That's correct.
If the government waits until the May budget to reverse this decision, what will have been the impact on your organisations between now and then, if they wait till that late in the cycle?
A real loss of, I think, as Glenda put it, attention on the policy and program issues and the conduit process that we provide, and a focus on our own internal survival, which is obviously what happens to any organisation when they are faced with a threat to their resource base.
I think the loss of trust is quite significant, and trust of us to government, but also the uneasiness within the sector. With at least every day we have a member ringing up saying, do we renew our membership fees? Are you going to be here? Yeah. So whilst most of our money is government funding, we do get some from our membership, but already that's being put in jeopardy.
And that would be the same for CHUFA as well.
As a member-based organisation.
Yeah. It would be the same thing in terms of what happens after June, what happens in terms of the policy development. We have a number of projects that were in train. Are they continuing? Participation in processes. We've got a national housing conference coming up. There's a good example of national housing conference, and there's three main peaks that have played an important part in that. And I don't think any of us will be participating.
I might ask, because we're a bit short on time, I'd like to give coalition senators some opportunities as well. If you could provide with us on notice, as long as it's not too much work, just a breakdown from each of you, how many staff are involved, whether you're going to be in trouble re-signing leases or other contracts and that kind of stuff, just what this train wreck actually looks like, if that's possible. Mr. Quinnell, I'd like to also thank you for coming in this morning. I know it's a bit of a strange setting for a conversation like this, but we hear a lot from the organisations on the front line. I found it really valuable in Perth as well to hear from people who had actually experienced it themselves, so thanks. You'd be familiar with the work that these guys do probably better than anybody. What's your message to the government this morning, having experienced homelessness directly and having heard what these people are being put through?
Well, by my personal experience is, if they did cut the funding or whatever, it's just going to be a lot harder for people to get back in if they really want to get off the streets and stuff like that, homeless. It would probably impact a lot. Maybe crime would go up and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because that's what, in the long run, that's what you end up resort to, to survive. And it's not the way we should be living. That's about it.
Yeah. Thanks for speaking with us this morning. Thanks, Chair.
Could I just add one quick thing, and it was about in relationship to Senator Ludlam's comment about some of the things around leases. In the situation for CHUFA and for National Shelter, and it's a part of Clause 22 in the terms and conditions, there is a clause that provides for the government to pay reasonable costs incurred as a result of this action, and I know we are in negotiation about trying to get some of those things covered, like do we have contracts that extend past the 30th that we're going to have to honor, things about staff entitlements and redundancy. So there is some leeway for that. But that's not the case for Homelessness Australia.
I know my committee is currently taking industrial advice about the nature of my contract and the claim against that, and whether that will subsequently be claimed as a reasonable cost. I never try and be too confident about that. For National Shelter, it's a pretty simple equation. We only have one permanent employee, and that's me. I work from home, so there's very little overhead.
Okay, good premises and stuff. What a train wreck. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Senator Kennedy.
Thanks, Chair. Can I just, I might start